How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. We got a lot to talk about here on the show today. Mike Sempervive joining us in the next segment of the show. It's an open line Friday day. You can call us about anything that's on your mind. The phone number 844-411-5411. The text messages 425-780-7566. Really, the big thing to talk about today is something that we talked about yesterday as well, actually, which is the state of the WWE stock. A couple of days ago, they were at $100 per share, down another 3.15% today, almost 3.16, $82.69 per share. They've lost nearly $20 in the last couple of days. And obviously the reason for that is they've got a lot of money coming in the fall, and a lot of money coming in 2020, 2021, 2022. But despite all that money coming in, there's a lot of problems, and everyone is just now apparently figuring out about this. There are unhappy talents. There was another person yesterday that quit and just got announced for StarCast today, coincidentally. There are all of the issues with declining ratings. I mean, they tried to hype up like the amount of television that people are... I'm not sorry, not the television. The number of WWE Network hours people are watching, the number of social media hours that people are watching. But I think people are starting to figure out that what really matters is, are we building new fans? Are the wrestlers happy? Is this John Oliver thing correct? Like, what's going on here? Got an article here from the Motley Crue, or the Motley Fool. Maybe Motley Crue wrote it. The Motley Fool, about the drop in the stock price. We can read that today and talk more about it. Dean Malenko has quit the company. He's the guy I was talking about. We'll tell you about that. And more horrible WWE booking. As we talk about all of this, they announce other things that don't make any sense. Get into it after the break. Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Lots to talk about here today. This from the Motley Fool, Jeremy Bowman. Why World Wrestling Entertainment shares got crushed today. That, by the way, was written yesterday. Stock is down even further today. Shares of WWE were getting pinned to the mat today after the WrestleMania host posted weak results in the first quarter. Revenue and profits both fell. Stock down 12% as of 2:09 yesterday. Entertainment company said revenue fell 2.8% to $182.4 million, missing estimates at $199 million. Revenue from live events and merchandise sales fell, which the company blamed on temporary superstar absences. Maybe we had some people figure out that maybe that's not the problem, because there have been superstar absences dating back to 1963, including, as somebody noted out, in 1999 and 2000, when the biggest star in all of wrestling that actually turned WWE around, Stone Cold Steve Austin, he was gone forever. They didn't seem to have any problem then. They kept growing. The declines were offset by growth in its media business, as WWE Network average paid subscribers rose 2%. Digital video views rose 15% to 7.7 million, and hours watched rose 23% to 300 million. Revenue from media, its biggest segment, ticked up 1.5% to 135.4 million. So, as noted before, like, the stats they're throwing around to tell you that everything is fine is more people are watching not on TV. They're watching on social media, which, by the way, they don't break it down here. The vast, vast majority of that isn't in this country. It's like in India, where they're not making a lot of money. And more people are watching more hours, which, of course, is because they're making all of the shows longer. So their BS stats that people are still actually looking at right here is improvements in WWE. Says here, increased investment in content weighed on the bottom line as the company reported an operating loss of $6.8 million, down from a profit of $21.8 million last year. That's a giant drop. CEO Vince McMahon explained this and that. WWE has faced some negative press lately about talent management, the gross pay gap between male and female stars, and its reluctance to develop newer talent. The HBO show Last Week with John Oliver recently did a segment spotlighting the company's poor treatment of its performers. Nevertheless, WWE remains optimistic about the rest of the year, as they should, by the way, maintaining its forecast of $1 billion in revenue and at least $200 million, representing a 12% increase from the year before. Its deal with Fox later this year looks promising, it says, as does the increase in viewership across multiple platforms. That doesn't look impressive. And investors should keep their eye on the talent issue over the coming quarters, as it may not be so easy to resolve. So, the best I can say about this article is people are starting to figure things out, but people are still getting snowed as to what the alleged increases in viewership over various platforms and people watching more content on the network actually means. Any comments, Mike?
Not really, no.
All right, well, I got another one then.
82.57 right now. Next quarter, when they get a spike of Saudi money, because again, this is also part of it, is every other quarter they're going to have this, and I guarantee you, once those numbers are placed and once they have another one of these investor meetings, that the stock could spike right back up again. The Motley Fool has never been one to... they were early on the WWE bandwagon. Some people say too much. Some people, so some people are going to take this report that they have with the grains of salt, some grains of salt. But it's, again, one thing does have to do with another in a way. And I know you're going to get into, I'm sure, some of the things that are annoying you. But, you know, we have to be somewhat careful because, again, they are two sides of somewhat of the same coin, but they are completely different in what is taking place on weekly TV. Yes, that is going to affect your business overall and things like that. But I mean, on this show, you know, concentrating on the week to week, on the creative, on those sorts of things, I mean, that's what we have to look at. And are they maintaining fans? Are they creating fans? That sort of thing. To hang everything on the stock price, again, it's, you know, you start mixing things up here a little bit too much. I mean,
I'm not hanging anything on the stock price. I'm pointing out that people are starting to open their eyes as to what's going on.
No, they're not really.
Before, they were blindly looking at everything and going, it's great.
You noted that, well, we're going to have to take a look at the labor issue. No. I mean, what's written in that article? No, you don't. There's more of, like, the reaction to the... You said in the article that the talent is... What was the line about what you're going to have to keep an eye on when it comes to talent, when it comes to these unresolvable or...
No, what it said here, what it said is that... Where's the line here? The point they're talking about is we have to keep an eye... Oh, here it is. No, it's not. Oh, here it is. Investors should keep their eyes on the talent issue over the coming quarters, as it may not be so easy to resolve. They're not talking about John Oliver's segment on HBO. They're talking about Vince McMahon's excuse that the reason that things are bad is so many talent have been injured. That's what they're saying is not going to be so easy to resolve.
I don't know if that's what...
That has nothing to do with anything.
But that's the thing, is I don't think that exactly. That's not really something to keep an eye on. The reaction to going back to Saudi Arabia will probably be more of something to keep an eye on than that. You know what I mean? So again, I'm not discounting this, but it's, you know, there are tangible things, you know, week after week, show after show with this show that is really far more pressing than anything that has to do with the stock price. And look, this thing could, quote unquote, correct. All of a sudden it drops to $70 a share. It's still not the lowest it would be in the last year. And so I don't know. They could take a major drop off the stock price. It's terrible for them from an outside point of view, but it's got nothing to do with the everyday. It's not as pressing to us as the everyday issues are.
Listen, I've been waiting for this for years now. I want the shareholders to understand what's happening here and actually start pressing the company for a solution. Instead, you listen to every single one of these shareholder meetings in the past. Nobody ever asked any questions about anything. They asked the dumbest questions. Now we actually had some decent questions that they were pressing the company on, and they didn't just take this report and go, you know what? Things are down right now, but hey, we got a lot of money coming in the fall, so it's not a big deal. No, they're looking at this like, hey, there's some problems here. This is a step forward to hopefully Listen, I don't think the stockholders can single-handedly get Vince McMahon removed, okay? But that's what we're dealing with here. I hate to be the guy who's going to call for this more than anybody else, apparently, but Vince needs to be removed. Somebody else needs to take that role. I'm not even saying that you got to, retire the guy. Let him run the XFL. I've never been so hopeful that a football league succeeds.
Wow.
Let him spend all his time on the XFL. He'll have less time to screw everything up on a weekly basis for Raw and SmackDown. Let somebody else step in and do that job. Then we'll talk. You know how great NXT is? You know how awesome that show was last night? And it wasn't even like it was a great show. That's the funny part about it. But it was a above average episode of the show, but everything about it was great. Everything they did on that show was great. Their handling of all of the talent, the storylines that they put together on the show, even the BS finishes that they had in the main event played into future storylines and got you interested in what's going on. Everything about that show was awesome. Meanwhile, we got a tweet today from Andrade. You hear this? Andrade tweets, "Hey, Finn Balor, I got you once, you got me once. Let's make it more interesting next time. Let's put the Intercontinental title on the line." Can you imagine? They had Finn Balor beat the guy clean in the middle of the ring on Tuesday, and they're using that to build up a championship match where Andrade challenged. They can't do anything right. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Spurs says, "You just called down the thunder for openly calling for Vince to be ousted. The rabid fanboys will be out in droves over that one. I agree with you, it's time for Vince to go. I do not think this will happen easily or smooth." Of course it won't. He's pretty much said, "I'm going to do this till I'm dead." So it's not going to be easy.
Well, remember what happened the last time that somebody thought that he was removed from power? What happened to the stock price? So,
yeah, that would definitely affect the stock price. You're right. Absolutely it would. But in the long haul, if you want this company to turn around this everything that's going on right now, a monstrous decline in ratings. Got another guy quitting, by the way. Dean Malenko quit the company. Sports Illustrated reported Thursday night Malenko quit WWE. Report has been confirmed by Dave Meltzer. 58-year-old Malenko is part of a famed wrestling family. Boris, father, brother Joe. He began working behind the scenes with WWE after his retirement from in-ring competition in 2001. He follows Arn Anderson, who of course was fired. And they've added a number of other behind-the-scenes agents as well. I guess he was a producer, he's an agent. But anyway, here's the key to this story, everybody. The key to the story is Dean Malenko has had some health issues. And Dean Malenko is 58 years old, and because he was working as a producer for WWE, he, unlike the wrestlers, was in fact an employee. And so he was provided with medical insurance by WWE. So whatever it was, he wanted out so badly that he gave up his job that provided him with insurance for his issues and quit. So he's gone, and he's already been announced for StarCast. So my guess is that he's probably going to be going to AEW, which will take care of him. And I don't know. There's another one. Another one out.
Well, for a guy like him, and a lot of older guys who may be Florida guys who may be looking at this as an opportunity. I mean, it's something to be said about Arn Anderson leaving and Dean Malenko leaving. With that said, Abyss is there. Shane Helms is coming in. In fact, he's having his last match over the weekend, or maybe what his last match is over the weekend now that he's going to start in with WWE. Sanjay Dutt, Daivari. I mean, they have added a lot of guys. Jeff Jarrett has been, I guess he's more on the writing team though, but so they have an influx of guys where I'm not, everybody's got their issues as to why, Arn Anderson, supposedly left and now Dean Malenko leaving. I don't know if that's necessarily a sign of people. I just think people can get frustrated and leave because they have an option now if he wants to do something with AEW, but they have so many guys there now that have come in that I don't know. I get that it's a loss. You lose that experience. You lose those guys being able to talk to some of these other guys, but that's what, Abyss and Dutt and all these, I don't know if that's...
I'm not concerned at all about WWE.
I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if there's some recycling.
That we're going to have a dozen guys within a 4-month period, and women, that are either quitting or want to quit and can't quit.
Well, here's also the first time that they've had real options in a long time, or what is perceived and considered to be a lot of options right now. We'll have to see how this whole thing plays out with AEW and with these other promotions too. We'll see where if Dean Ambrose comes back and ends up working shows elsewhere and things like that. I mean, we'll have to see where some of these people go and how some of these things play out, because a lot of these people want to leave. Now, once it's time for Luke Harper to will his tune change if things change in the business? Well, a lot of people's tunes change if AEW doesn't work out the way they want it to. I mean, this can change at the snap of a fingers and swing the pendulum right back into WWE real fast.
We got more. Are you aware that we're 2.5 weeks out and they haven't figured out where everyone's going yet on this superstar shakeup? After months they had to plan this out. They're still switching people back and forth. We've got the B team, Bo Dallas and Kurt Axel. They have been moved to the SmackDown brand. And as noted, I guess Nikki Cross is now official for the Raw brand. There is a couple split up. Killian Dane is on SmackDown. So we'll see what happens Monday. Maybe the fans will get up in arms again, and they'll put those guys back together again. But there you go. More moves still being made 2.5 weeks after they were supposed to figure out where everybody went. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
I have a question about the debate you had with Dave Meltzer.
Oh, you're back.
About the ratings.
Yes,
You said
Ryan.
that it was because of the bad booking, because of Roman Reigns. I sort of agree with you on that, because anytime you take a main character off a TV show, his ratings are never the same when they bring back that main character. Say, like when the Dukes of Hazzard did it and when Saved by the Bell did it with Kelly. We all saw that same pattern, that the ratings were never the same once they took off that main character. So did you ever do like a poll to figure out why the ratings are down?
A poll?
I
don't need a poll. Listen, Ryan, I want to thank you very much for the call. Let me clarify what I was talking about with Dave. Yes, there's been a huge downturn since around the time of Crown Jewel, okay? But I do not believe that we are where we are right now because of Crown Jewel. I do believe that there are a somewhat substantial number of people that quit the WWE Network because of Crown Jewel, and I would not be surprised if there were people where Crown Jewel was the last straw for them. But Crown Jewel was in November, and it is April right now. And we are still seeing the decline has not slowed down. It's still declining. So if you only want to say it's because of Crown Jewel, that means that people would have had to been mad about Crown Jewel in November, but they kept watching. And then they quit in April because of Crown Jewel. That's not what happened. Yes, some people quit because of Crown Jewel, but there's a lot of other things that happened at that same time. All of that put together is driving people off. And to me, a large part of that is creative absolutely fell off a cliff starting around Survivor Series. When they did that Survivor Series, SmackDown got obliterated in every single match, and you tuned in the next week to find out what was going to happen, and nothing happened. And they didn't follow up on it. And all of the booking that they did, I know a lot of people are very upset about the Ronda, Charlotte, Becky booking. And yes, Roman Reigns leaving. Roman Reigns left, and there were probably people who were Roman Reigns fans that stopped watching WWE. Now, I understand that Dave and a lot of people listening to this right now are big, diehard wrestling fans. I've never met anyone in my life who is a bigger fan of wrestling than Dave Meltzer. But a lot of people aren't like Dave. And the fact of the matter is, if you're in the habit of watching something on Monday night, and somebody that you like, say Roman Reigns, leaves, and you stop watching, and he's gone until February, and you don't watch wrestling at all during that period, you start watching something else, you get into other habits, and you're done. And I know that not because of wrestling, but I've had podcasts that I've listened to, for example. And for whatever reason, something came up, and I couldn't listen to the podcast for 3-4 weeks, or maybe I had one podcast that it wasn't working on Downcast, and I couldn't figure it out, and it was it. I never listened to the podcast again. I got out of the habit of watching it, and I didn't watch it, and I didn't listen to it again. I mean, these things happen with people who aren't diehard wrestling fans. They're people that liked Raw, and they liked Roman Reigns, and he vanished, and they got out of the habit of watching, and they never came back. Those things happen. The horrible period from November through the end of December, where on every single show. It was incessant heat. Incessant heat. Probably drove some people off. And then, when Vince McMahon came on TV and said, you know what? We're going to turn this around. We're going to fire Baron Corbin, for example. We're gonna put this show in the hands of the fans. And then they proceeded to do none of that. They lied to you. All of these things are reasons why the decline is still going on right now. The superstar shakeup. They promised it was going to be a shakeup after WrestleMania. Everything was going to be different. Instead, the very next week, we have a Baron Corbin main event that we'd seen on Raw for months prior to that. Nothing has changed. All of these things drive off fans. It's not one thing. It's not Crown Jewel. All of these things, I'm sure I can get texts from people going, no, Bryan, I quit. I know you quit because of Crown Jewel. I know some people did. But that's not why we're down 24% year to year in April. We're down 24% year to year in April because of a number of other things have driven people off. And these things do not appear in any way to be being remedied by WWE. It's the same stuff. Am I wrong?
No. You're not wrong. Do we have Dr. Lucha coming up in the third segment?
I wish. I can't get a hold of him. I'm a little worried, actually.
Okay. Well, just if we do, let me just put this in here now. Let me slide a little bit from the outside the ring to the inside the ring. And one thing the WWE has been able to do extremely well, which is completely saturate the indie scene and get their tentacles into things like they have in the UK. But for fans, they do actually get a halfway decent tournament. In fact, it's a very decent tournament in progress, which has been announced and is up on the main page. Kyle O'Reilly and Trevor Lee, as well as DJ Z, are involved in the Progress Strong Style 16 tournament, which is going to take place from May 4th to May 6th in London. Also joining them, Travis Banks from NXT UK, Jordan Devlin, and Ilya Dragunov, as well as a bunch of other people. They've announced the brackets. The first round, Chris Brooks against Ilya Dragunov, Trevor Lee against Aerostar, Travis Banks against DJZ, Artemis Spencer against David Starr, and on the right side of the back bracket, Kyle Fletcher against Daga, Lucky Kid against Jordan Devlin, Darby Allin against Paul Robinson, and Kyle O'Reilly against Chris Ridgway. So there is that, as well as we speak, and people will be able to check this out after the fact because we don't want you turning from here, on EveWrestling.com/Eve On Demand, Chris Wolf, everyone's friend, having her last match. She's retiring, so yes, Chris Wolf is presenting a show. I cannot believe she didn't book you for this and fly you over to the UK and have you involved in some sort of way, human with meat. Yes, so she will be retiring, so yay, Chris Wolf. She was fun for a very short period of time, but was very, very entertaining. Did she try to eat you at any point?
Well, we got to head to a break, dude. Hold on. Back in a moment. Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Let's do some texts and calls and more news here. Bert says, your tale of people leaving for one character is correct. My little cousin started watching for Dean Ambrose, and when he was injured, he stopped watching. Came back the first week Dean returned, and then bailed again. He had moved on. Well, you know, when Roman quit, the numbers went down. Or when he left. And then he came back, and the numbers spiked for that 1 week that he came back, and then they went back to normal again. So it's possible that there was some of that there as well. Bert says, I don't blame Malenko, R.D. Evans, and whoever quits in the future. Well,
not all quittings are created equally. So, you know,
the guy got yelled at and quit. I'm proud of the guy.
Well, but I haven't seen the video. Apparently he did a video that's supposedly very good. Everything he did when I saw him before he joined WWE, I always thought was very good. So this is going to be this is like, we'll see where he catches on, but he's got a bunch of it. I think you had brought this up on the show. You know, when you have somebody that just got a bunch of WWE experience and how they run things and how they put on the show, which they are occasionally, you know, they are a big professional, big operation here that's doing this a while. You can glean things from that and apply it to other things. And we'll see if he does that with an AEW or with another promotion around once he takes his little vacation and is over with it. So, We'll see how that affects things, but everybody that leaves isn't leaving for the exact same reason. I'd like to hear what Dean Malenko has to say after StarCast and see what he talks about. But the situations between him, R.D. Evans, and Arn Anderson are all completely different.
I'll say it point blank, this person says, I stopped watching Raw because of Baron Corbin. Well, I'm sure many people did that as well. They appear to do that on Monday night. This person says, it's just a coincidence, and they're now filled with TNA alumni backstage, and the storytelling has gotten worse. No, that has nothing to do with it. The Impact people backstage are agents. The storytelling, you know what the storytelling is? It's Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
It's not even the writers. The writers have to write. Yeah, if you're upset that Kale asks stupid questions and the wrestlers respond with stupid answers, that's the writers. But as far as Andrade losing to Finn Balor and then Andrade wanting a championship match based on that loss, that's Vince. That's not anybody working backstage as an agent. That's not any of the writers on the writing team. That's this crazy guy who I don't even know what's going on. Person says, I hope the investors understand the only reason viewers are watching more is because WrestleMania and other pay-per-views are now 15 hours long. Well, I do hope they figure that out, but they sure didn't figure that out in that Motley Fool article. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
Bryan, this is Mike in Buffalo. I just have a question, I guess. So, do you remember the other day you were talking about how if you had you have a contract with Chris Jericho and his crews doing your radio show, and how you couldn't, at a port, just randomly say, I don't want to be on this cruise anymore and get me off this boat. So, now, ironically, I want to know the level of irony, because literally 24 hours later, the story came out that Vince is pulling Undertaker and whoever else, I forgot who the other one is, from the StarCast panel for whatever it is, Double or Nothing. And now he, so basically your analogy was you can't leave your contract with your Jericho cruise, but the wrestlers, they can't leave their contract with WWE. But now Undertaker and all these other guys can be pulled from their StarCast contracts. And I know they're giving them, Mark Henry, you said, and somebody else, but you can listen to Mark Henry whenever you want on Busted Open during the week if you have satellite radio. You can't substitute Undertaker, especially, I don't know if they sold tickets or what was going to go on there, or if he was just going to do a show. But, I mean, what does it matter if the Undertaker does a StarCast panel? Does Vince think he's going to tell, Vince's deepest, darkest secrets?
No, he just doesn't want him. He just doesn't want him doing anything for anybody else. That's it. And, yeah.
So I just don't understand. So what? How old is the Undertaker now? We're past the point of him being an enigma or whatever they called him, a phenom. Because we all know at the end of the day, it's wrestling, and the guy's a guy. He's a human being. So we're to the point where people want to hear his stories now, and eventually it's going to happen, whether it's in May this year or in a couple of years when Undertaker's finally done with WWE. Or maybe he never will be. Maybe we'll never hear Undertaker.
Yes. That's it.
Story.
That's in Vince's mind. That's it. He's never going to go. Hopefully he never goes. And all those stories, if they are, can always run through the filter of a WWE production. And I think that's the long and short of it, to be honest with you.
It's not that he is concerned about Undertaker giving information or doing. He doesn't want him doing anything for StarCast and AEW. That's it. He wants him to be a loyal WWE soldier. And apparently, I don't know all of the details, but it seems that what happened was when he agreed to do that, they contacted him and they signed him to a new deal. And I'm sure the new deal they signed him to restricted him from doing outside deals. And even though he'd already confirmed the other outside deal, I mean, I guess they must have paid... I don't even know how much. I presume they must have paid Conrad something to get him off of StarCast. I mean, Conrad could sue if he wanted to, but he's just going to waste a ton of money, and the StarCast will be long over by the time the lawsuit is finished. So, I mean, this is the way that WWE operates. I mean,
put Kurt Angle on that pile too.
Yeah, Kurt Angle, same thing. He also got pulled. I mean, they don't want anybody. They don't want anyone that they consider one of their guys.
And that's even funnier. If you think about the history of that, that's hilarious that Kurt Angle as well, he's one of our guys after for so long, them. And for good reason, for a lot of that time, keeping him at more than arm's length. Now it's like, well, Kurt Angle, we got to keep him in pocket.
Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
Hey, Bryan, it's Chris in Las Vegas. Is it open lines today? I just joined in.
Please.
I'm calling about the Bray Wyatt segment. When I turned on my television, because I turned it on just as it started, I had to check 3 times to make sure I was watching the right show. I went to my program guide, the TV guide, and I was like, yep, it's Raw. And I thought it was completely bizarre. It looks like he's going to be a psychopath of somewhat. And I'm glad my children were not, because they would not be allowed to watch that. I think that'd be a little too much for them.
Well, it's definitely different. He does appear he will be a heel. What are you breathing into the phone for? Are you that upset?
What?
I hear a lot of breathing.
No, I'm not upset. I'm sorry. I took a drink of water. I apologize.
Okay, that's all right. But yeah, so not a fan of it?
No, I was not. I think it'll add a lot to the Bray Wyatt character, but I feel like I'm watching a wrestling show. I didn't feel like I was watching. Well, I shouldn't say that because it's WWE, so I should know better. But I felt nothing wrestling about it, and I didn't know why it was on my TV.
Well, I want to thank you very much for the call. To me, here's the thing with Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt needs to not just change his character, but he's got to change what he does in the ring. Because I'm not saying that Bray Wyatt is a bad worker. I don't think he's a bad worker. But his matches never really lit the world on fire. And so for a long time, he did the same interview every single week. Just, you didn't know what he was talking about. And he had a cool ring entrance. And he had the exact same match. And by the way, this goes for a lot of people in WWE. It's not really all his fault or anything like that. But, I mean, you can give the guy a new character, and you can give him a new talk show, and you can have him try to corrupt the kids or whatever. But at the end of the day, he's going to have to be wrestling in the ring like every single week. So I'd like that to be kind of shaken up a little bit as well. That's my Bray Wyatt thought.
Well, unless it's Elias or they figured out a way to not have him in the ring every single week. I guess you don't have to do that if they don't really want to, but we'll just have to see. I mean, it's different era. The Bray Wyatt, I mean, think about it. Bray Wyatt's character and everything. I mean, it's great. It's got a short shelf life. It only goes so far and then just kind of falls off the cliff, and we'll see what happens here. He looks different. He doesn't look like he was when he was Husky Harris. I mean, this looks like a completely different guy than any other incarnation that he's been in the past physically. So we'll have to see if that's, and he's had a lot of time off to refresh. So we'll have to see where they go with it. They are taking at least a little bit of a different approach, and he has changed his body. Hopefully that does something to get people more involved in his matches, and he does some things to keep people more engaged as they go on.
So this person says NXT really is an excellent show. Week to week, you're rewarded for following storylines and excellent wrestling. Vince needs to move aside. Well, listen, to be fair, as I've also said before, I mean, it's not like if Hunter takes over Raw and SmackDown, it's going to be like an easy transition. You're going from an hour a week on a pre-tape program to 3 hours live every Monday, 2 hours live every Tuesday. Now, for the people that say, well, you're going from 1 hour to 5, actually you're not. The talent works either Raw or SmackDown. I mean, you can very easily task somebody else. I mean, here's the reality, everybody. Vince doesn't have to write Raw and SmackDown. He didn't have to do anything. He could live on an island right now and hire other people to do all of the work. Like, he could do Raw and have Triple H do SmackDown. They're totally different brands. There's not supposed to be any crossover. Shouldn't be messing up storylines by screwing up something from the other show. I mean, he could do that. You know what else he could do? He could have Shawn Michaels write Raw and Triple H write SmackDown. You know what else he could do? He could have Shawn stand on his head and Dean Malenko comes back and writes Raw and Triple H writes SmackDown and Shane McMahon does jumping jacks the whole time. The point is, he can do whatever he wants. He doesn't have to sit there and write both shows. And when he's gone, Triple H doesn't have to write Raw and SmackDown. Doesn't have to. No. He can write one show. You can have somebody else write the other show. I mean, there's plenty of ways to make things work in this life. You don't have to do certain things.
Well, and Triple H doesn't have to listen to anybody, though, and he could end up as the filter that Vince was, and maybe in a worse way. We don't know that. We just have positive hopes that that won't be the case. And think about NXT's not going to play to 5 million people. It's not. WWE, for anything you want to say, they have conditioned a lot of people for a lot of things. But what can come back is what NXT does the best, and there's some old pro wrestling sensibilities that still continue to work. Some sports build things and some other things that once contained and placed, if those things were all throughout Raw and SmackDown, it would still be a long show, but it would make it a far easier one to follow and a far easier one to take in.
Hey, listen, if you're sick of WWE, there's a bunch of options coming up this weekend. There is the Crockett Cup, which we talked with Dave Lagana about a couple of days ago. It's available on Fight.tv, Honor Club, and pay-per-view. There is an Impact Wrestling Rebellion pay-per-view, which is coming up on Sunday. Lance Storm's going to be on the show later on today. He will be a guest referee in the main event. Johnny Impact, I guess he is now. There's so many Johnnies. And Brian Cage for the title with Lance Storm as the referee. And, of course, on Saturday night, if you're in the Northern California area, you can skip Bellator and go to All Pro Wrestling, taking place on April 27th, tomorrow night, Saturday, a fundraiser for the Ballet Folklorico group at James Logan High School. It is at the James Logan High School in Union City, California. And I will be facing the Jungle Boy for the APW Junior Heavyweight Championship. So when I return on Sunday, Mike, I will be Bryan Two Belts, as will be my new moniker.
Will you be wearing one and have one draped over your shoulder?
Hey, I might. I may wear them both. I may not wear any pants and just wear belts all over the place.
Bandolero of belts all the time.
UnionLanding.eventbrite.com for APW tickets. Back in a moment. Observer Live. Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also WrestlingObserver.com. This person says, is there any reason WWE won't start WrestleMania at, say, 1 p.m.? I could probably deal with a 7-hour show if it ended at 8 or 9. WWE's only hurting itself with the mega late end. Had a lot of people when WrestleMania went too long say, just move it earlier. Well, there's a lot of us here on the West Coast as well that don't want to start watching WrestleMania at 10 a.m. on a Sunday. Like, your family wants to go somewhere. Maybe you like to go
watch it at 3.
Maybe you like to go to church or something like that.
This was a thing with you, wasn't it? I remember this. The pay-per-views are starting too early. I can't deal with this. I recall this.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks.
So instead it just goes late into the night then, right? That's much better.
No, over here it starts at 2 and it ends at 9, okay? That's too long. If it started over here at 10 and ended at 5, that's too long. If it started here at 5 and ended at midnight, that's too long. It doesn't matter. My point is, it doesn't matter what time it starts. 7 hours is too long. That's it. It's too long for a wrestling show. 17 matches? Why did WrestleMania need 17 matches? Anybody? Okay, thank you. The show, you know what? When the show hit the 4-hour mark, it was an awesome show. Then it kept going. And by the end, it wasn't an awesome show. That tells me 4 hours was probably the perfect length for that show. But hey, they had to be able to announce to the investors that people are watching more than ever.
You just wait, and I know those production people in WWE, they never think it'll happen. Watch, you're going to end up with a 7-day WrestleMania show one day.
Never.
If they can pull it off, they'll do it.
Never. You know what'll happen?
You know what I also have always heard? They'll never have one longer than 4 hours, and they blew past that.
If they did a 7-day WrestleMania, they would have 100,000 very hardcore fans that watched it. That's it. If that's what they're happy with, if they can find 100 people to pay $5,000 for a 7-day WrestleMania, hey, you can make some money that way.
WrestleMania cruise.
But your normal person ain't going to watch it. We're out of time, everybody. I want to thank you for listening. Don't forget tomorrow, All Pro Wrestling, James Logan High School, Northern California. And I'll talk to you again next time. Thanks, Mike, as always, callers and listeners. Wrestling Observer Live.